Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Wim Lou. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. What's going on, man? Friday?
Yeah,
You and I just
Friday.
both had our first bubble tea of the day.
Yeah, thanks
It's
for...
maybe my only one, but you're going to have another one later.
Yeah, happy Asian Heritage Month. This is the most Asian Heritage Month thing that's happened to us so far. You messaged me an hour before the show. You're like, don't get your Tim Hortons coffee today. I've got a bubble tea for you.
Yeah.
You went to Cha Time.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate you.
Of course, man.
And as I got your message, I was already holding a bubble tea.
That's wild. That's wild.
Like...
That's wild.
So, but I appreciate the gift. So I'm gonna go grab that during the break.
Well, just like on Tuesday when you had like 5 bubble teas, I would say in an hour. I think you could do 2, man. I think you could do 2.
No, I can do 2. Do you think a bubble tea is a meal? Because I feel like if you get a large bubble tea with toppings, that's like pretty filling. Is all I'm saying. This is like the Asian version of is the hot dog a sandwich?
Yeah,
like,
that's a good one.
Is a bubble tea, large bubble tea with tapioca, a meal?
I mean, it's just not going to hold you for more than 2 hours, I feel like, because it's really just carbohydrates.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, This is like soup. Producer Derek
do
says.
not compare bubble tea to soup.
Asian soup.
That's not right.
Asian dad. That was not a drop. What would you like to talk about first today? Would you like to talk about Lakers Warriors, or would you like to talk about Milwaukee firing Coach Bud?
No, let's talk about the game first, but I do want to talk about both.
Let's do it.
Because there is a bit of a news item that the Raptors had interviewed with Charles Lee, one of the associate head coaches under
Not
Mike
Asian.
Budenholzer.
Yeah.
Charles Lee does have a very Asian name.
Yeah, I have to
agree with
clarify.
you.
Not Asian.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, so let's talk about the game last night, too.
All right.
That was
Warriors
exciting.
rebound with a 127-100 win in Game 2. I believe this is the 16th straight game where the home team has won Game 2 after the road team went up 1-0.
Yep.
So
that's one of those stats where I didn't know that was a stat, and now I've heard it 5 times in a week.
Yeah, we should name these stats. So you know how earlier this week I told you Miami set a record in Game 2 against the Knicks for most points by undrafted players, right? That was, to me, that's a Chris Quinn stat, right? This one, this is a Joe Wolfon stat to me.
These aren't even stats. This is just trivia.
Yeah, but this is a Joe Wolfon trivia to me.
No, that's fair.
So let's name this one after Joe Wolfon.
I mean, it's not how many dribble handoffs that Jared Vanderbilt runs.
Talking DHOs right now?
Yeah, that's more of a Joe Wolfon stat to me.
Yeah. Anyway, so the Warriors
Stats William special right here.
Warriors scored 41 in the second, 43 in the third quarter. Really ran away with the game. I thought the Lakers came out pretty strong, especially LeBron was on his greatest of all time behavior. Really early.
Yeah.
And you actually messaged me and said there's going to be a lot of goat noises on the show.
But really there wasn't going to be that much because I think obviously the Warriors definitely took over.
Yeah, but early on before the Warriors took over, it looked like, you get one of these nights from LeBron. We've talked so much about how he's what is that?
That's a goat scream.
How he's scaled it, his scoring has scaled back, etc. And you thought you were getting one of those games from LeBron and you wanted to take advantage. He finished with 23 points, hit 2 threes early on, ended up 3 of 8 from 3. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. The Warriors made the adjust. They put JaMychal Green in the starting lineup.
Yes.
Kevon Looney wasn't feeling too well, ended up playing 12 minutes and somehow had 8 rebounds, which was more than any individual Laker that played. JaMychal Green gave them 15 points in 13 minutes, 3 threes, but come on. It wasn't JaMychal Green or Kevon Looney. This was the big 3, man. Steph, Clay, and Draymond. They got the win yesterday.
Well, I mean, the Lakers definitely ramped up their defense against Steph even more. I thought they did a decent job of it in Game 1. Steph was able to get free. This one, they really limited his touches, blitzed him a ton, and we've seen this pattern with the Warriors over and over again. Like, the Warriors know exactly how to, solve that. You want to credit a guy like Jared Vanderbilt for playing pretty pesky defense. Typically, what you see is opposing teams putting smaller guards on Steph. We even saw this in the last series with Davion Mitchell. Obviously, in the past, it was like a guy like Matthew Dellavedova, Fred VanVleet. When the Raptors beat the Warriors, that's the defensive assignment. The Lakers are going with a different approach. They're putting a longer, quicker guy on him, and they're really trying to deny him. But I just thought the whole night Steph was able to take that added pressure and just free up other guys. And it was just really impressive to see it. I mean, that's where, you saw obviously Klay, he was just, it's funny because, I mean, you could say that like Steph was drawing double teams and so Klay was more open, but when you watch some of the shots that Klay takes, they're not even open. They're like, he's rushing into those shots. He's just like heaving them up there. But like some nights he just absolutely makes everything. Last night was one of those. But I thought Draymond was definitely a huge recipient of the extra attention to Steph. He was able to get free and roll his way to the rim. I mean, when you watch a Draymond scoring highlight, it's literally just him going all the way to the basket for layups, completely uncontested because his man is staying with Steph. And yeah, it just, the Warriors obviously played well as a team. I didn't even think the JaMychal Green thing was like that big of a deal. I think over the course of the playoffs so far, and we've seen the Warriors play 9 of those games, like it's been a constant sort of struggle between having 2 bigs on the floor and sort of dominating the possession game and having more size defensively versus having more space offensively when they only have 1 big in the middle. That's why Draymond was coming off the bench after his suspension, was because he really liked the way that the Warriors were able to respond in Game 3 against Sacramento.
Yeah, it was Draymond's idea. Just remember that.
Of course, it was Draymond's
but he
idea.
But he didn't want to take credit for it.
Yeah,
on the podcast that he records after every game.
Yeah, every game that doesn't involve him getting
the
suspended.
#1 podcast in Canada, Draymond Green Show.
Yeah, we'll come back for that spot, Draymond. We'll see. All right, we had Andy Lou in the banter pod. Those numbers haven't been reflected yet. But like that's just the power that Steph has. And I think that when you're able to sort of either create more space for him or when he's able to sort of play as the primary scorer, like it's actually not, there's no real way to like take away his game, because if you are going to deny him the ball, he will get other guys open, and if you play him more one-on-one, he will just score 50. So
this is the power of Steph.
Yeah,
this is the power of Steph.
Like really impressive, man.
You hold him to 12 shots. He ended up finishing with 20 points and 12 assists. But you mentioned it's like, you talk about gravity all the time with Steph and all this stuff, and like this is him. This is why everybody's like he's an offense unto himself, right? Like whatever strategy that you shift, other people are going to benefit from it.
The tricky thing with that too is I don't even think the Warriors necessarily know what's going to happen every time they come down the floor. I think Steph, he gives it up, he runs, he sets a random back pick. Like, it's so hard to defend an offense that even the offense itself doesn't necessarily know what's happening.
Yeah, you got guys out there. The Warriors' offense is just guys running around like Pac.
Yeah.
And then it just ends in a 3.
So it's
or a Draymond dunk.
It's pretty impressive. Did they have 21 threes again last night? Man.
Yeah, and I think with Klay too, right? Like he's taking a step back in his career. And like sometimes you look up his shooting numbers and they don't look so great. And there's times when I'm like, man, like is this it for Klay? And like it just seems like every time they need a big game, like he's there for them. Like he hit the 8 threes yesterday, and I thought Draymond was just so impressive, man. Like it's like talk about the stomp, talk about the podcast, all the distractions, but like this is why Draymond is one of the most valuable players in the league on this team. Like I know he had a near triple-double in the box score, but just watching him, the way he just like makes the right plays on offense, the way he defended Anthony Davis, it's just everything about Draymond, and this is why they put up with everything.
No, of course. We all know that.
Under all circumstances. If Dillon Brooks is under no circumstances, the Warriors will put up with Draymond under all circumstances.
That's fair, because I think Draymond actually might have done worse than what Dillon has done. No, but I think that was the key to defensively. Draymond giving Anthony Davis some problems. I think Anthony Davis should be able to still score against Draymond. I've seen him have really great games against him in the past. But it is kind of funny watching AD's like stat lines with the scoring, because his defense is pretty consistent. Even last night, I thought it was pretty good. But his scoring in the playoffs, right, just points by the game. Game 1, he had 22 points. Next game, 13. Next game, 31. Next game, 12. Next game, 31. Next game, 16. Next game, 30. And then last night, 11.
Yeah, they got.
He's really every other night he's gonna have a great game.
They got a new nickname for him now, right?
What?
AD stands for alternate days.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's the one that they're running with now.
This is a wild pattern to see, man. How do you jump from either 30 or 13?
Yeah. Well, it's a wild pattern too,
because it's not like it's not even like the Warriors like overplayed AD and took it away and made him pass. Like he just wasn't that effective. Yeah,
I think this is a huge problem right now for them in this series, because I think the Lakers are playing pretty good. even yesterday they got blown out. Like I feel like they have a pretty good defensive team.
They played great in the first half.
No, like I feel like they have a really good defensive team. But the problem now is like, you know, you see LeBron was getting going yesterday and you were like, okay, if they can get games where LeBron and AD are both going. Because like as good as that supporting cast is, and like shouts to Rui Hachimura, Happy Asian Heritage Month with 21 points yesterday. But like they just need those two guys. Like they can't afford to have AD coming up with these like 11-point performances, man. Not against the Warriors, because the Warriors have that gear on offense, like you saw yesterday, where they can just run away, right? Where I feel like the Lakers have to like muck up the game a little and really just grind it through.
Yeah,
like
they
when
also
they're down
didn't get
15,
to the free throw line that much last
night. I think it's like when the Warriors are down 15, still not that stress. But it's like I don't know if the Lakers, especially with LeBron the way he is right now, can like play uphill that much in this series.
I agree.
So the margin is, but this has been the case against the Warriors for like what, a decade now, man. Like you have to play these perfect games to beat them.
This is why I don't pick against them.
No, it's fair.
They have a higher than anyone else. By the way, 12 minutes for Tristan Thompson last night.
Oh yeah, that's when I turned it off. When I heard Tristan Thompson was checking in.
That's when
you were joking. You said
that's when I locked in.
You said they need a league pass alert for when Tristan checks in. I think it's good. They should turn your TV off automatically for you.
So first off,
tell me what you saw from Tristan. Oh God.
He was actually like probably the Lakers' best player on the floor in garbage time. Obviously, that doesn't really matter, but it was just like, wow, I have not seen Tristan Thompson play basketball in so long.
This guy was on ESPN like 2 months ago.
Is Tristan Thompson the first player to go from NBA Today to playing in the NBA tomorrow?
He went from NBA Today to NBA tomorrow to NBA Tonight.
Yo, like this. Imagine if like Stephen A. walked off. Like actually, the only time Stephen A. could be on ESPN more is if he actually played the game.
If he hooped.
But yeah, like imagine if that happened. Like this is historic.
He's not that old too. The thing, like Tristan's like, I think he's in his early 30s. Like we got to do an age check on that. I'm gonna say he's 32.
All right.
No, like it's wild to me.
32, exactly.
Yeah,
there you go.
So his career arc has been wild. Yeah. And once upon a time, he was such a huge, factor for the Cavs, right? Like during those series when they played the Warriors.
Word.
Like you needed to, once they. I'm trying to take Tristan Thompson's career seriously. No, he wasn't.
He was very good. Yeah, I mean, not very good, but like a very good role player for sure. Yeah.
But it's just so funny his career arc this season. I watched him every day, like 3 p.m. On NBA Today. He was talking about LeBron's legacy, and now he's trying to help his legacy.
That's
what
elite,
are we doing?
This guy went from running pick and rolls with Dave McMenamin to running pick and rolls with Max Christie, man.
That's insane.
Who else in history has done that? So respect Canadian legend, man.
I need to see his tax return this year, man. He got a T4, whatever it is in the U.S. from ESPN. He got one from the Lakers.
Well, didn't they sign him on the last day of the season too? So it's not that big of a check. It's conceivable.
They call that the Dante Jones.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Shouts to the 2016 Cavs. But like, do you think he's been paid more from ESPN than from the Lakers?
No, I think he's making pretty good money on the Lakers, even on like a prorated.
Yeah.
NBA players get paid wild, man.
All right.
Did you see LeBron and Rui's little handshake routine before the game?
Yes, I did.
With the,
you want to reenact?
Do we call it an Asian bow? Or?
You want to reenact those?
Oh, I don't really know. Do they just? Oh, that's it.
That's it. That's really it.
Also, it was noted.
Straight to the point.
It was noted that Malik Beasley messed up his handshake with LeBron. So I would look for him to be on another team.
Well, there was a clip going around yesterday where that's basically the handshake. Let's be honest, okay? He probably says that to Rui Hachimura. Rui's like, I'm Japanese.
Oh God.
But anyway,
let's not get into that. Yeah.
Asian Heritage Month. But pregame, LeBron was coming out for the warm-ups.
Is this the Quinn Cook story?
Quinn Cook was out there.
Yeah.
And LeBron saw him courtside.
He's like, what up, chef?
And he's like, oh. And then he went over and did the handshake routine with Quinn Cook.
Yeah.
Who got Quinn Cook by Fred VanVleet in the 2019 finals. Well, I love all those characters that I see. Anyway, that brought up the discussion. How does LeBron know like 400 handshakes with people?
I know. There was a clip that was circulating too that he like went back to Miami earlier this year and did a handshake with the security guy. Like he's got handshakes with like personnel in the arena.
Yeah.
This is like if we see Zoe and like we have like an elaborate handshake.
Technically, we do have a handshake with the head security guy.
What are you more impressed by though? Like LeBron's memory when it comes to the handshakes, or we've seen him at press conferences just recall every single play from the game that he just played?
I think the handshakes, because for me, I've done that on the Rack Pod, and I didn't get the same credit. So
it just all these handshakes just seems like you have to like that's a lot of memory space.
Yeah,
in your brain.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You tell me you're reserving brain cells for Quinn Cook?
What kind of clutch segment is this?
No,
Are LeBron James's handshakes impressive?
No, it genuinely is impressive, man. You and I don't even have a handshake.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we have? No.
No, we should just do the Ray Hachimura one.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Anyways, 1-1 now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing, too, and I know we need a name for this stat, too. I think I'm going to call this the Windhorse stat.
Okay.
You know that the Warriors have won a road game in 29 consecutive playoff series.
Yes.
So if that holds true, the Lakers are going to have to get another one in Golden State, which I think that's going to be tough for them, man. Have to get a game 5, obviously a game 7. All I'm saying is it's looking good for the Warriors again. I mean, every time they're in a hole, they climb out.
No, but yes and no, right? Because it was the same thing with the Celtics. They lost game 1 at home, and then they came out and destroyed the Sixers. And it was the same kind of deal. Third quarter, they blew the doors off, hit a whole bunch of threes, and then the team kind of folded.
I just think it's hard to get the Warriors as the series goes on.
I suppose, but at the same time, I don't know, man. I still think the Lakers have some like real physical advantages. I think AD, when he has the next good game, is going to probably win the game.
That's simple. Sometimes it is that simple, though.
No, because even in the game yesterday, I'm still impressed with the Lakers every time I see them. Like, just the fact that they got Rui Hachimura for like 3 second-round picks and Kendrick Nunn is kind of ridiculous. Like, Rui could really play. Like, mostly he's going to shoot the ball, and mostly he's not going to pass that much. But defensively, he's like average, I would say.
Sure.
And then, like, yeah, who doesn't want a knockdown guy in the playoffs? You know what I mean? Like, so.
But like
they got him again. They got him for Kendrick Nunn. We saw Kendrick Nunn with the Wizards, man. That was not good.
I've seen Kendrick Nunn with the Heat, with every team.
Yeah,
it's the same.
Right.
I mean, if you ask Wizards fans, I guess that would be Joe House. Like, they didn't see this in Washington, though. Like, you know, to this like consistency.
Sure. No, yeah, for sure.
In terms of like the knockdown threes and all this stuff.
Yeah, well, he's been excellent though.
No, he's been great.
Yeah, had a great dunk driving baseline too.
Yeah. All right, is that it for Lakers Warriors? Shall we move on?
We've covered handshakes, so I think we've gotten everything we can out of this.
So the other big news yesterday was the Milwaukee Bucks announcing that they fired Mike Budenholzer after 5 seasons with the team. They lost in the first round as the #1 seed in 5 games to Miami. And in his 5 seasons, Coach Bud had a .693 winning percentage in the regular season.
Damn.
They had the most regular season wins during that stretch. And they also had the most playoff wins during that span in those 5 years. And yeah, now the job is open. I don't think this was a huge surprise considering how they collapsed in the first round.
Yeah, you know, I obviously on this show we've talked about Bud plenty, and I think that look, it's kind of undeniable that Bud has been able to set up really good regular season teams.
Let's not forget that they replaced Jason Kidd with Mike Budenholzer, and they were able to get to the next level with him.
That's true. They were able to get to the next level with him, but they still weren't able to beat the Toronto Raptors in the playoffs.
Doing that right now, man.
So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, like I think that he definitely sets up his teams to play fairly optimally in the regular season. I think he's been able to just similar to Atlanta and also again in Milwaukee. Like, you know, his fastball was just so good. Like in this case with Milwaukee, it was a lot of drop coverage. Right, we're gonna shoot a ton of threes. We're gonna really play quickly and fast, and like all those things are like the right things to do if you're gonna win a lot of games in those series. I think what happens in the playoffs is like, you know, even within series or you know or definitely between series, as in like you're facing a different team each time and you win in the playoffs. Like there aren't the level of adjustments that you want to see, especially if you're going to be able to be proactive or even reactive within a game. You just haven't been able to see that from Bud. And of course, that's been a pattern that's held true in Atlanta. That's why he lost so many in a row in some of those series. I'm not saying I ever expect him to beat LeBron, but like to get swept by LeBron every single time was tough. And
you're talking Toronto? Oh, you're talking Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like when he went to Milwaukee, it was the same kind of deal, right? Obviously in 2019 when he first took over, Toronto went down 0-2 and they won 4 straight. I consider that a sweep.
Yes.
If you can't respond after like 3 straight losses, you can't get something different out there.
Yeah.
Like I think that's where the shortcomings clearly are. I think he's going to get a job. I think his winning record speaks for itself, both in Milwaukee and in Atlanta. But I just don't think it'll be with a team that has championship aspirations. And I also think that for Milwaukee, like, yeah, they're clearly in a dire scenario where, this is one of those choices you make after consulting with your main players. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis was like, look, I'm not saying you should fire Bud, but at the same time, like, if you feel like we need to make an upgrade, go ahead. And so I think their next decision is going to be very interesting. I know a lot of people have already pointed at Nick Nurse. I mean,
do you think Nick makes sense there?
If Nick gets Giannis before Masai gets Giannis, that'd be hilarious. But honestly, I'm more curious about, like, not necessarily who coaches the Bucks, but what they do with their roster, right? Because it was already fairly old this season. We saw it catch up to them fairly quickly. And with a lot of those guys, like, entering free agency, key players like Chris Middleton or Brook Lopez, and, like, you have to make decisions on these guys and on this core. And what's dangerous about a team like this is that you don't actually have that many young players that you can, move off of to bring in more win now pieces, nor do you have extra picks, really, because you've already used that in the Drew Holiday deal to bring in, help at that time. So how do you actually improve the roster? Because if you don't do that, then you get back in a scenario where we're wondering all about Giannis again. So this is a team, obviously the head coaching part is going to be very important, but more than that is I want to know how they can move the roster around, because right now they look kind of boxed in with the group that they got. They can keep it. That's a good team. That's a really good team. Maybe if they don't run into Jimmy Butler again, maybe they can make it out the first round and second round. And, if you told me that this group is able to win another championship, I wouldn't be too surprised. But at the same time, like, they also need to find ways to sort of replenish the roster, because this is one of the oldest teams in the league already.
Yeah, and I think this just illustrates how quickly things change in the NBA. A couple weeks ago, they're going into the playoffs as a championship favorite, and you would assume, even if they didn't win the championship, they get to the conference finals, get to a finals, and you just kind of keep this thing rolling.
Sure.
And now they're without a coach, and I look at it as kind of similar in a way to the Toronto situation, in that, like, this was a collective failure, right? Like, this season for the Raptors was a collective failure from the players, front office. But the easiest move, the first move, is usually the head coach, right?
Yep.
And similar here too, because it's like, yes, like, we pointed out all the mistakes that Bud made, especially in that game 5. Not calling the timeouts, not putting his team in a position, and you like illustrated, like, his playoff track record has
not double teaming Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, has had those flaws, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, it was like, oh, Giannis was playing like hot potato with the ball. Like, he struggled in that game, missed the free throws, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, they got beat, right? Like,
no,
Jimmy,
for sure.
Jimmy overwhelmed them. But you're right, though. Like, this summer is actually huge for them, because like, Giannis can sign an extension in September. They can offer him a 2-year extension, and if not, he can become a free agent after the 2024-25 season, which means he's 2 years out from being able to go to free agency as a 30-year-old. Brook Lopez is an unrestricted free agent. Chris Middleton, who's like kind of taking a step back with all the injuries and all that stuff, he's got a $40 million player option that he can opt into for next season. If not, then, he could ask for a 5-year max at $270.
If I were him, I would probably look to try to get more long-term money, especially now that he's coming off of injuries.
Yeah. And Drew Holiday, the other big player, has said that he plans on retiring when his current contract ends in 2 seasons.
Yeah. He just kind of said that on the on Point Forward with Evan Turner and
he'll be
Andre
in his
Iguodala.
mid-30s by then, I want to say, in a couple of years.
Yeah, he said he talked to his wife about it, and he's like, look, listen, like, how much more do you really want to do this?
Right. So even if you bring back Brook, you bring back Chris Middleton, you have Drew Holiday, you have Giannis, like, you're right. Like, the clock is ticking again on this team, right?
Yep.
It's a 2-year window here. It's a 2-year window. Obviously, if Giannis signs an extension, then a lot of the noise goes away. Then you have a bit of a runway probably to build a team out. But like you mentioned, like, the options of building that team out, there's not a lot right now.
Yeah, and this is where it's dicey for a head coach, right? Because you commit to this project, but if they change the roster in 1 year, maybe in 2 years, all of a sudden you are suddenly back in flux again. Yep. And yes, you have the opportunity to coach Giannis, and I'm sure, like, most coaches would take that chance and just say, we'll figure out the rest. But yeah, it is a little more dicey. I could see, though, like, if you bring in Nick, like, he would probably make some changes defensively. I think that is already a really good defensive team, but they have such good defensive personnel that I think with Nick's creativity, they can get into another level. Like, who's not going to be playing Jimmy Butler in single coverage? Nicholas Nurse. Okay, he's going to be trapping Jimmy at half court. So
you know who's going to no longer be averaging around 30 minutes a game? All of the Bucks starters.
Yeah. You know what? Brook Lopez,
get ready to learn cardio, buddy.
Brook Lopez, you better get on that Peloton, all right?
Yeah.
No, but seriously, like, I think, yes, that I see the fit there, but also at the same time for Nick, it's like, if you don't win next year, this whole roster might be completely different.
No,
the
I
front
totally
office
get
might
that.
be completely different.
Ownership's changing
Ownership
too
is
already.
changing.
Yeah.
So it's not like the most secure job. Like,
but you also, I mean,
you might be in a scenario where you now are having to deal with a rebuild.
Yeah, but the carrot that gets dangled is you get to coach Giannis, like right now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that's very appealing, right? You're getting Giannis in his prime right now, right? You can't guarantee yourself maybe more than 1 year, 2 years with that. But I don't know. If you look at it as a situation just like right now, even with all the roster questions, like that's a pretty attractive job, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I do think you're right, though. Like Nick or anyone has to.
Well, there's not actually that many openings available right now. I mean, it's Toronto and Detroit, and Detroit's just had their opening since the season ended. The minute the season ended,
Detroit's left
Dwayne
the
Casey's
door
like,
open at the
I'm
practice facility. They're like, anyone's welcome to come in and interview.
They're like, we're hoping to get Kevin Ollie. I'm like, just get him, man.
Yeah. They're trying to pull an ollie.
What's he busy with, man? NCAA's over, man.
He's doing an ollie.
By the way, so Mark Stein also put out yesterday that Bucks assistant coach Charles Lee had interviewed with the Toronto Raptors for the head coaching position. Obviously, as we've covered and other people have covered as well, it's a pretty extensive list. But it is fairly notable. Again, this is one of those things where if you wanted to get to know more of his process or even get to know sort of his vibe and sort of how he comes across, you can go online and look up some interviews with Charles Lee. If you just search up Charles Lee Milwaukee Bucks, there's a really good interview for like 12 minutes where he sits down and watches film with one of the Bucks media people, and you really get a sense of a vibe of sort of like what he's like. And to me, on the surface, just based on that, and it's hard to judge based on more than that when it comes to an assistant coach unless you really know them personally. But it was cool, man. He's got an interesting story. He used to be working on Wall Street, and he was like he was describing. He's like, I was picking up Starbucks for a whole bunch of people one day, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he just left. And then he like obviously found his way into basketball. Got onto Mike Budenholzer's staff. Was there in Atlanta as well, and then took him over to Milwaukee. And he seems like a really bright guy. He's pretty well spoken, pretty good vibes. Again, just watching from a 12-minute video and. This past year, he worked a lot with the guards, Grayson Allen, Chris Middleton, Marjon Beauchamp. And, it's interesting even just hearing his perspective in terms of how he helps develop these guys. So I'm sure, I don't know, of the 20-some-odd candidates the Raptors have, like they're all going to have some similar stories in terms of their ability to develop players or their ability working with NBA players in the past. But no, I thought Charles was cool, and I think he's also a candidate, I think, for the Detroit job as well. So
yeah, he's a finalist.
He's got to be in consideration for the Milwaukee job too, because there is a real chance that you let Bud go, but you still keep the status quo more or less, especially if you're going to keep the roster more or less the same.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing where you kind of consult Giannis, talk to the guys about it. It's interesting too, like when the Raptors job became open after Nick Nurse got let go. We immediately got a full menu of assistant coaches who were lined up who were listed. Whereas I was trying to look for this today too. Like there hasn't been any speculation, like any names tied to the Milwaukee job.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that part works, right? Because when Nick was let go in Toronto that Friday, right before Masai stepped to the podium, you immediately saw Woj tweet out that Ime Udoka is a strong candidate to be considered. Now, obviously, Ime didn't ultimately choose to stay here. He ultimately took the Houston job, but like you just didn't see any of that. Like we saw Mike Budenholzer's fired. You didn't see the subsequent tweet of like this guy is in contention. Like no one even linked Nick Nurse. It's just Raptors fans being like, well, oh my God, Nick's gonna land Giannis before we do.
Yeah, but it does make sense beyond that if you just think about it. If you're Nick, do you take the job if you were offered the job? It is a tough call.
Probably, yeah.
But based on everything you laid out, it is a tough call.
I want to hear like what their plan is for the roster first and foremost. Because I do think that Nick is in a good enough spot where he can dictate sort of where he wants to go. But at the same time, like I would definitely want to speak to John Horst about the direction of the team.
Oh, nice pull. Nice
maybe
pull.
talk to the new ownership.
Your execs.
Yeah, I know ball, man. He looked like Sean Woodley. And it's just you need to know the future there first because that could very much be a 1-year thing. But I mean, if you're coming from Nick's background of like having coached in short-term positions in the past, I think he has a track record to sort of take advantage. It's also like he just has a lot of confidence. Let's just be honest, man.
Of course,
he's a bit of an arrogant guy. So if I were him, he would probably look at the
He's like,
scenarios.
if you give me a 1-year window, I've literally done that before here in Toronto
Yeah,
with a player.
exactly.
Like I can do it.
Yeah.
And I also beat you guys that year, so just hire me.
That's a pretty good job interview. I'll shake your hand before you walk out the door, man. This guy pitching himself better than Don Draper in the carousel.
Yo, that's wild. Man.
Wow.
Please watch Succession.
No.
The other quick Bucks related thing was, yesterday we were marveling over Justin Champagny wearing the number 99.
Yeah, we forgot about Bossman 99.
Apologies to Jay Crowder.
How could we forget Bossman 99? It's unforgettable. Yeah. It's literally in his handle.
Yeah, so we messed that up.
Yeah.
And someone did send this in on Basketball Reference. The other players who have worn number 99, and you got this one too, was Taco Fall.
Yes.
He was there.
I remember that just because of the bubble.
Yeah.
You remember Kyle throwing the ball over him? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Darko Milicic.
That one I
was
completely
on Boston.
Forgot. I didn't even know he was with the Celtics at some point. That's
in 2013. Yeah, no championship.
Yeah, those were some of the dark years for the
Roy
Celtics.
Rogers also on the Celtics in '98. That's before your time.
My favorite cellular brand.
George Glamack from 1949.
I got no jokes.
So
on
excuse me. Ariel Mon. I sorry, man. And George Mikan. We forgot Mikan.
We forgot George Mikan. How could you forget George Mikan?
His nickname was Mr. Basketball. He B-ball George.
He was the original B-ball Paul.
Listen, Mikan's a legend.
George Mikan.
Mikan's a legend by all accounts.
Yeah.
But his nicknames were Mr. Basketball, Mikan the Magnificent, the Monster. That's Wesley Chen, by the way. Excuse me. And Big Mike. Wow, nicknames have been terrible since 1950s.
That's wild, man.
Big Mike.
Is that even worthwhile to put up there?
I don't know.
Big Mike. Of course he's Big Mike, man. He's 7 feet tall and he's Mike.
Mr. Basketball is pretty sick, though. You got to give him that.
Yeah, Mr. Basketball's all right.
That's a good one.
Somehow B-ball Paul doesn't hit the same.
It really
What if
doesn't.
we said Mr. B-ball Paul?
You know why it doesn't hit the same? Because he's a backup. Like,
I guess.
You know what I mean? Like,
I guess when you think about the sport of basketball, the first player that comes to mind isn't B-ball Paul.
Yeah.
So he can't be Mr. Basketball.
Anyways,
right.
Nick Nurse maybe to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Heard people say Bud to Toronto. Definitely not.
I don't know. I think the Raptors should look in another direction. Not to say that Bud isn't a really good coach, but I do think that I think that going the assistant route, really investing in development, someone here who can do it in a long term view, I think that would really help. But I do think Bud will land on his feet somewhere, though.
Oh, for sure, man. Listen, he's getting criticized for all this stuff fairly, but this stuff happens.
His winning percentage with the Bucks was 68%.
This is what I'm saying. This criticism comes out at the highest levels.
69, wow.
There's a lot of coaches that don't even get to his level to be able to be criticized in these playoff environments, right? Like, and he comes from the Greg Popovich coaching tree.
That's right. He's got 2 Coach of the Year awards.
Yeah.
Why are we Bud's agent right now? This is tough, man.
We've done propaganda for how great LeBron's handshakes are, which I'm already feeling so much secondhand embarrassment, firsthand embarrassment.
Yeah.
And now we're like, yo, Coach Bud, best coach on the market right now.
I mean,
shouts to Bud, man.
Yeah.
All right.
We're going to take a break. Take a break. It's well overdue. I've been your host, Will Lou. That's Alex Wong. You're listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Liu. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. During the break, we were just watching AI's acceptance speech for the MVP trophy. I gotta say, David Stern had a real way where he was able to just like really hype up the moment. Like he had a bit of like a Vince McMahon quality to him. You know, where the commissioner steps in, but like steps into the character.
Oh,
whereas Adam
how do you
Silver,
know so much about Vince McMahon?
I've seen a lot of clips of that man on YouTube.
Who do you think you know
and
more?
I've never really watched that much wrestling in the first place.
Who do you think you know more, Vince McMahon or Tim McMahon?
Definitely Tim McMahon.
Definitely what?
Definitely Tim McMahon.
This guy said, "Howdy, partners."
Yeah, no, seriously, that's my favorite ESPN guy. And then, but no, seriously, I just think that when Adam Silver does his like, you know, presentations and stuff like that, he's just not memorable. I don't know. It's like he just exists in a plane. Like he's so alien, like to the rest of the things that are happening.
I think he's got a little like social awkwardness type vibe to him.
Yeah, whereas David Stern just walked in. And
He
you're
owns
like,
the room.
That's the boss.
Yeah, he owns the room.
So, shouts to David Stern, man. Rest in peace.
Yeah, R.I.P. to Dave.
You knew him?
All right, man. It's on you, man.
Oh, that's right. Before we get to the second half of the program, I just wanted to pass along the programming note once again that our run on YouTube this season has officially ended after today. But we will continue to be live on air on Fan 590, airing on Sportsnet 360, and streaming live on Sportsnet Now. And, of course, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please download them. Keep us ahead of Draymond Green. I just looked it up today. We have 3 of the top 4 episodes in basketball in Canada today.
Oh, we're digging deep now.
But we're still behind Dre Pod.
What kind of Joe Wolfon stats are
my
these,
goodness.
man?
Yeah, Banter Pod was like number 2, but
you
we're
can
still
look
behind
up by
Dre Pod.
episodes.
Oh, that's
man,
right.
Don't say this on air, man. My dad's gonna ask you for the URL.
No, you can get daily report card on the podcast if you really wanted to. But
no,
yeah,
shouts
unfortunately,
to the YouTubers. Shouts to all the YouTubers.
Do we have to root against the Warriors or something? Is that what we have to do?
You know the problem is, and I know no one wants to hear this, podcast analytics. The problem is they're playing the Lakers too. And like people want to hear that. It's not just Warriors fans.
You're right.
It's Lakers fans. You know, it's my cousin in Hong Kong. You know, it's your cousin in China.
Yeah.
Like they're all into this.
Get ready to learn Chinese, buddy, Draymond. They could tap into a whole new market, man.
They are tapping a whole new market.
That's fair. Yeah, look, we're 3 of the top 4 right now, man.
All right.
Oh, shouts to No Dunks, number 1. Nice.
You know who you are right now? You Klay Thompson flashing like the 4 rings.
To Draymond?
I'm like, yo, that's enough. That's enough.
All right, fine.
Shout to our colleague Lance Kennedy.
Yo, shouts to Lance.
Who is celebrating his 20 years with the station today.
That's amazing, man.
And I don't know if you remember, so like, you know, obviously shouts to, we got Derek Brandeo helping us. Where's Derek right now? We got Derek Brandeo, Jennifer Rolnick in the back, always helping us. But like we run into Lance before the start of every show because he's producing
of course.
Jeff Merrick and other things in the morning. So like we have our little chat. Well, I do. Like you barely acknowledge Lance.
I just struggle in social scenarios. I don't know what to say.
But I don't know
this is a weird job for me to do.
I don't know if you remember, like Lance actually was behind the boards to help us record our first ever demo show in the studio.
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember him looking at us like, who are these guys?
That's fine. A lot of people have looked at us that way.
Still the same.
But now we're number 2 behind Dre Pod. So
stop, man. You really Klay Thompson.
The numbers don't lie.
What kind of Klay Thompson behavior is this? This guy said we number 2, man. This guy's the deuce. Anyways, really enjoyed chatting with Lance about the Seattle Kraken and Chung Chung hot dogs.
Those are the only 2 things I've
Do we have a number 3 for Lance?
I have not heard anything else that you guys have discussed. But
no, listen, man,
not bad.
It's super cool.
How do you know stuff about the Kraken? Are you a Kraken fan?
Yeah, man, I love the Kraken. I love the Vegas Knights.
Name 2 players off the Kraken right now.
Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to Professor Joseph Wong at the University of Toronto. His Joe's Basketball Diary series, where he gathered a lot of people from around the city to talk about different topics about basketball in terms from a community perspective, a racial perspective, gender, all this stuff. Really cool conversations. They actually got honored with a couple of awards. Got the Ovation Award from the International Association of Business Communicators.
Wow.
And they won the International Gold Quill Award of Excellence. So shouts to all the people working there behind the scenes too. Anna, Lisa, they're the brains and creative visionaries of the series.
Deeply regret not being available last summer.
Don't worry, there's a season 2. There's a season 2.
It was not me avoiding this, I promise. I was just in Montreal every other week.
No, you really were.
All the weeks that they were shooting, I was in Montreal.
No, you really
were. Or in like.
But yeah, people into basketball want to hear about like conversations, especially like Toronto-based conversations. Like look up Joe's Basketball Diaries. It's got like millions and millions of views, so it's probably charting higher than you. So
Okay.
shouts to him.
It could just be about the love of
I'm
the game.
trying to turn you
Look,
into
you
Klay
know how hard
Thompson.
it is to talk about the Raptors 3 weeks after the season's done and everyone hates the whole team?
We haven't talked about the
Like,
Raptors.
it's a miracle that we're up here, okay?
Don't worry.
We're beating the odds.
Kipper and Bourne coming soon. So, you know, on this podcast, on this show, we talk a lot about, you know, you riding in my 2001 Honda Civic.
Do we talk a lot about this?
Like it was featured on the Banter Pod this week.
Okay, gotcha,
again.
gotcha.
So I actually came across another Honda Civic story this week related to Jeff Van Gundy.
Oh,
So
all right.
he was driving a 1995 Honda Civic back in 2000 when he was coach of the Knicks.
That's acceptable.
And is it acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay.
What? You can't drive a car
people on
5 years
NBA
after?
Reddit, people on NBA Reddit was looking up like the MSRP, like the real retail price.
That's
And they're like, why is Jeff Van Gundy driving a car that could be worth $17,000 only?
That's probably what he was. What's wrong with a man driving a car
I
5
never
years
said
out of
anything.
out of date? Like,
No, I'm in full. I drive a 2001 Civic in 2023.
you're right. You're right.
So I support you
okay,
on
okay.
this.
I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong with. Don't shame a man for doing this.
So he had parked his car like at like where he had at the airport. Like I guess they have like a private area. So then like they were coming home from Miami after a playoff game, and then when the chartered plane landed, there was like a jet blast from the plane that blew his car into the air.
What?
And the other three cars that were
okay.
parked there was Allen Houston with a 97 Mercedes.
Yeah.
Former Raptors head coach and assistant at the time, Brendan Malone, had a 99 Lincoln.
Yeah.
And then the team's media relations director. So imagine if like Jennifer Quinn's car was there.
Yeah.
All four cars were on the tarmac, but then when the jet blast on the plane, it blew Van Gundy's car into the air and his car smashed the other three cars. But thankfully, nobody was injured.
So who foots the bill for that?
I don't know. James Dolan?
What?
He said you better learn
imagine-
facial recognition.
Imagine you're filing the State Farm insurance claim on that, man. Holy.
You're going to have to see Chris Paul and Cliff Paul on that one, man.
No, man. That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
So, but you're telling me though, Jeff Van Gundy was driving a worse car than his assistant though?
Yeah.
Interesting.
He was a
Interesting.
frugal man.
I'm starting to judge a little.
Anyways,
bit,
if you wanna listen to the full story, I was actually trying to pull a clip, but like Jeff Van Gundy took like 11 minutes telling this story.
Yeah.
Check out the Dan Lebitard show. He was on it
Interesting.
earlier this week, and he told this story.
By the way, this is the only way to destroy a 1995 Honda Civic. Otherwise, that thing would still be functioning. That thing would be running. That thing would be hitting 120, no problem on the highway. Like, it's, yeah. So the Honda Civic is like the best car ever built, man. It's indestructible, except for jet planes, apparently.
The Honda Civic is Udonis Haslam, man.
No, I'm telling you, man.
It'll last you 20 years.
You think Jeff Van Gundy got a Bluetooth player installed in there? I guess Bluetooth wasn't around.
I want to
back
know
then,
his
man.
3 CDs in there, man.
Yeah.
He got Frank Sinatra. You know what? He got the same playlist.
Got listen to My Way, driving on the highway.
He got the same playlist as Lee Ben Osman from Karaoke. That's Jeff Van Gundy, man.
Jeff Van Gundy bumping Jordan Sparks right now
Oh,
somewhere
man.
in a 2010 Kia Soul.
Anyways, quick make or miss Friday. Shouts to Cash and Wolfon from Pound the Rock.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We have time for this? All right, let's go.
Of course, man. Monty McNair was named Exec of the Year earlier this week.
Yeah.
And me and you were both unfamiliar with what Monty McNair looked like, first of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was
You just look it up. That you know what? Just
look up
guess.
Monty McNair. Have your
guess,
expectations.
and then look.
Expectations versus reality.
Yeah.
So we know that Executive of the Year voting is based by other execs.
Yes.
You know.
It's the only award that's voted on by the other people instead of the media.
Yeah,
Like the actual people
yeah.
who do the job.
Make or miss, execs voting for Exec of the Year.
I actually love it because it really does show you some pettiness that takes place.
That's what I hate about
Like
it.
the year that again, I'm never gonna forgive this, but the year that Masai hired Nick Nurse and acquired Kawhi Leonard.
And Bobby acquired Kawhi Leonard.
Okay, Bobby acquired Kawhi Leonard and Marcus Gasol in the same year, and Jeremy Lin on the buyout market. All right, but Kawhi
And
Nick
Jody Meeks.
and Jody Meeks and Marcus Gasol, and they gave up what they
Eric
gave up
Moreland.
to pay for it, and they won a championship. Afterwards, they were like, John Horst trading 4 for second-round picks to get Nikola Mirotic, who went straight to Barcelona afterwards. Like his name was Pedri or something. Like that's
what?
That's who is going to win Executive of the Year. I love the pettiness of these awards. So yes, I actually do enjoy seeing it.
I think it's terrible. I think like you gave the perfect example of why it shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't reflect if you're letting execs have their feelings hurt and like be petty about it. like in 30 years, you know, when Will Liu Jr. looks at exec of the year,
I'm not naming my
voting.
child after myself, man. Right? No, man.
When you know John's daughter, my friend John's daughter Everly looks at the exec of the year, he's gonna see John Horse in 2019.
No one looks up executive of the year, man.
I do, and then he's gonna and then he or she is gonna be like, what? And then gonna look it up and be like, but the Bucks got swept in the conference finals, 4-2. Yeah, like what happened?
Nah, but getting swept 4-2 is so funny, man. Again, don't hire Bud.
That's Asian
we can
math.
We can look elsewhere.
That's Asian math.
Anyway.
Nick Wright said that Draymond doing a podcast is detrimental to the Warriors during the playoffs. Make or miss, Draymond's pod is bad for the Warriors.
It's bad for us because now we're number 2
We're
in Canada.
not doing this again. Oh, I forget it, man.
But no, I don't think so, man. I think it's very clear what the media agenda is on this one. The media.
That's what I do. I talk.
That's what Draymond does. He talks. He pods, right? Like,
he talks, he pods, he stomps.
Clearly, he just like media want to be able to like own.
Sure, own the space.
The space.
Yeah.
So whenever I hear this, I'm just like, this sounds like hating. Like it really does sound like hating. And I think there's like a local example here in Toronto where someone was hating on Chris Boucher for doing a podcast as well.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like, but why? Like, what's wrong with this? I actually kind of enjoyed the insight. I think it adds more storytelling to it. I also think that you could very much acknowledge that the players are only going to speak from a very positive perspective and hide certain things.
Sure.
But that's the same thing as the media to some degree as well. So I think just the more pods, the better. It's unfortunate that we're number 2 now, but I'm with Draymond on this
We need to move off this number 2 thing.
I'm taking it very personally.
You're really Klay Thompson right now. My thing with Dre is I want him to bring a guest on every time. Let's bring a teammate on every time. Yesterday, I would have loved a green pod, you know, Jamichael and Draymond.
Man, they were working that green pick and roll yesterday.
Like December.
I had flashbacks to post-Christmas, man.
That was the only time you weren't in studio. Like you mentioned during the break, you have been here every single week.
Yeah.
Every single show.
Every single
You're
day.
Mikal Bridges, man.
And meanwhile, I'm number 2.
Oh, my God. Next up, somehow Dillon Brooks has made it into the rundown again.
I mean, you choose the rundown.
NBA.
So.
Oh, my bad. We're all trying to find the guy who did this. NBA insiders mentioned Miami as a destination for Dillon Brooks. He is currently the betting favorite on certain sites. For that, like Miami's the betting favorite. I don't know why I stammered there. I was just thinking, who is betting on Dillon Brooks' destination? Make or miss, Eric Spoelstra will turn Dillon Brooks into Kawhi Leonard.
I didn't know the Chinese Basketball Association had a team in Miami.
Oh my God!
No, I'm kidding.
This guy said I'm kidding. Guangdong to Miami.
I'm kidding, man. Kidding.
Yo, classic final YouTube.
No, Spo's not going to turn him into Kawhi, but I do think that you know, Dillon Brooks plays hard. He works hard. He's probably going to be a player that like I think a decent number of teams will actually be interested in free agency. I don't know why Miami in particular, but do they even have cap room?
I don't know.
Is he also? He's not undrafted. He's not going to Miami. Never mind.
Okay.
Miami only signs undrafted guys and Jimmy Butler. That's it.
One more before we get to between the lines. So Joel Embiid won MVP earlier this week.
Okay.
And teammate James Harden gifted him a Rolex for the occasion. Make or miss, one rich NBA player gifting another rich NBA player a Rolex.
This is like me buying you a bubble tea. Like in terms of economies of scale, I think it's actually fairly similar to me buying you a $10
So do you think that's
tea.
a cool gesture? Because it's like Joel could have just bought a Rolex himself too.
Oh, it's a cool gesture. It definitely is a cool gesture. I also always wonder, like, did Rolex have like a sponsorship like involvement in this in some way? Because I'm very, very skeptical.
We're gonna have to ask Mark Savelman.
Yeah.
He's the Rolex owner.
Is
and
he?
now it's time for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. It's a whole new game. Here, I'm gonna give you 4 games from tonight and this weekend to choose from. You can pick the one that you are most confident about.
Wow. Okay.
Boston Celtics are -3 favorites on the road in Game 3 against the Sixers. Phoenix Suns -4 favorites in Game 3 at home against Denver. Miami -4 at home against the Knicks this weekend. The Lakers are -3.5 favorites at home against the Warriors.
Yeah, give me the Boston.
You like Boston -3 on the road.
I like that
in
line.
Game 3.
I keep picking Boston.
You know, it's funny.
All the Bet River segments are me picking Boston, but I genuinely believe I genuinely believe that they are going to be able to overcome the Sixers. I think they've given the Sixers a ton of problems. I also think that Joel, you know, coming back, it's not like he's disrupting the flow, but at the same time, when he's not 100%, I do think that, you know, this is a chance for the Celtics to sort of streak ahead. I think they have a good game plan against Philadelphia over the years. I think Game 1 was definitely a surprise in terms of James Harden going off like that, but I'm pretty confident of the Celtics winning this series, and I'm pretty confident that they'll take. I mean, -3. I mean, yeah, I think they could win a close game in Philadelphia.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Miami -4 at home. You know, I think they're.
You saw Jimmy Butler was shooting like 40-foot shots too, by the way, right?
So they're expected to get Jimmy back for the game.
What kind of medicine is allowing these players to come back from month-long injuries in 2 days?
Ni hao. Ginseng?
I hope so. Ginseng? This guy said ginseng? Oh, man.
Is this why I've never healed from a single injury?
Ginseng works on everything.
Miami -4, and you know that home crowd's gonna be rocking. That half a home crowd.
Who cares, man?
They'll be singing Seven Nation Army at the end.
Yeah, when do we adopt Seven Nation Army as a song that everyone wants to sing? Like,
I don't know, but have a great weekend, everyone. Shouts again to the YouTube listeners for this season.
Yeah, we'll miss
really
you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah,
Kipper and Bourne coming up.
That's right.
We got Sam McKee in the main chair today.
Team of Destiny just wants to make a cool comeback again. So anyway, that does it for us today. I've been your host, Will Loon. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please, please, please review the show. Thanks once again to producer and co-host Alex Wong, our board producer Derek Brandale, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping on the YouTube stream. Please win games 3 and 4. I'm desperate.